All right, welcome back. If you're a financial crime professional, the regulatory world feels like it's in constant motion. So today, we're going to cut right through all that complexity. We're going to give you a really clear, concise breakdown of the global anti-money laundering framework, from the big international bodies all the way down to your specific role in your institution. Okay, let's get into it.
So I want to start with just one number, 2 to 5%. Just take a second and think, what could this possibly represent in the world of global finance? It's a pretty staggering figure, and honestly, it's the entire reason we're talking about this today.
Well, according to the UN, that's the estimated chunk of global GDP that gets laundered every single year. We are talking about trillions of dollars here. And look, this is way more than just a financial problem, right? It's a huge global risk that's directly tied to things like human trafficking, corruption, and massive fraud. And because this kind of crime is totally borderless, our response has to be too.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start by looking at the global battlefield. Then we'll meet the main AML architects. After that, we'll break down the risk-based approach, cover the 3 lines of defense, and we'll wrap up with the new golden rule: effectiveness.
First up, why do we even need a global framework in the first place? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Criminals are smart and they are opportunistic. They couldn't care less about borders, and you better believe they will always look for the path of least resistance to move their dirty money.
This right here gets at a key vulnerability that criminals just love to exploit. It's called regulatory arbitrage. Think of it like this. They're literally shopping around for countries with the weakest AML rules, and when they find one, it undermines all the hard work everyone else is doing. So the only way to really fight back is with a coordinated, harmonized global standard. It's our only shot.
So who actually builds this global framework? Who are the key players? Let's dive in and meet the 3 main organizations whose work has a direct impact on your day-to-day job in compliance and risk.
Okay, think of these 3 as a team, but with really distinct roles. You've got the FATF, they're the global rule setter. They're the ones behind the famous 40 recommendations. Then you have the Basel Committee. They're kind of like the guardians of the banking system, and they see weak AML controls as a direct threat to a bank's survival. And finally, the Wolfsberg Group, which is made up of huge global banks. They're the ones who translate all those rules into practical, best practice guidance for the industry.
But wait, how does FATF actually enforce its rules if it can't make laws? Well, it's all about powerful peer pressure. You see, getting put on FATF's gray list isn't just a bit of bad PR. Oh no. The IMF has actually shown it can lead to a measurable drop in a country's foreign investment. This isn't just some abstract idea, it means real-world pain, like higher transaction costs or even struggling to access international capital. That economic pain is a massive motivator for countries to get their act together. Okay, now let's get to the real engine that drives all of modern AML compliance. Seriously, everything we've talked about so far is built around this one central idea, the risk-based approach, or RBA.
At its heart, the RBA is a major shift away from a rigid, one-size-fits-all checklist. It basically acknowledges a simple truth: your time and your resources are not infinite. So instead of treating every single customer the exact same way, the RBA tells you to focus your compliance firepower where the risk is actually highest. It's just the smarter, more efficient system. And the process follows a pretty logical 3-step flow. First, you identify your risks across customers, products, geographies, you name it. Second, you assess them, weighing the inherent risk against the controls you already have in place. And finally, you apply proportionate measures to mitigate what's left over. That's the residual risk, the risk that remains after your controls are applied.
And here is the RBA in action. For a low-risk customer, simplified due diligence is probably fine. But for a high-risk one, let's say a politically exposed person, a PEP, you absolutely have to escalate to enhanced due diligence. And that means digging deep into their source of wealth, getting sign-off from senior management, and monitoring them way more closely. It's all about applying the right level of scrutiny for the right level of risk.
Okay, so we've got the global rules and we've got the core principle. But how does this all actually work inside a bank? Let's turn to the internal playbook that makes it all happen, the 3 lines of defense.
The first line is the business. We're talking about relationship managers, onboarding teams. These are the people on the front lines. They own the risk. They are responsible for that initial risk ID and all the day-to-day monitoring.
The second line, that's compliance and risk. They're the ones who design the playbook. They give expert advice and, crucially, they provide that independent challenge to the first line to make sure everyone's actually following the rules.
And then there's the third line, internal audit. Think of them as the ultimate check and balance. They provide independent assurance directly to the board that the whole system is not only designed properly, but more importantly, that it's actually working effectively.
So, where is all of this going? Let's wrap things up by looking at what is arguably the most important trend in AML regulation today. And that's the huge shift from just having rules to proving that they actually work.
This is the critical question regulators are asking, and frankly, you should be asking it too. While the risk-based approach is brilliant in theory, that flexibility can also introduce subjectivity. So the challenge for all of us is to make sure our risk models are solid. Are we truly managing risk, or are we just creating the illusion of control?
And that question is, what's driving all the current trends? The focus now is all about outcomes. Regulators don't just want to see your policy documents anymore. They want proof that you are stopping bad guys. That means a laser focus on effectiveness, a huge global push for transparency on who really owns these companies, new rules for crypto, and a real expectation that you're using data and technology intelligently.
And that really brings us to our final thought. You can have the best policies in the world, the fanciest new technology, but if your governance is weak, your data's a mess, and you don't have a real cultural commitment from the very top, well, it's all just paper. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Is your program just compliant on paper, or is it genuinely effective in the fight against financial crime?